how are you doing today?
I'm really good. How are you, Michael?
Awesome.
Good.
Now, as part of the Marshall White Way, we wanted to have a chat with you about your prospecting strategies and how you're going about generating business.
Yep.
So I know you've got a really simple philosophy, and let's get that one into the conversation up front, which is how many calls is that?
100 calls. I think that's minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Per
week.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, and that gets you sort of into the game of being able to do that and make that happen.
Absolutely.
Yep.
The 100 calls though is prospecting calls. So I think what a lot of agents do is they count their open for inspection calls and their returning messages as their 100.
I left a message tick.
Yeah, that is not 100 calls.
Yep.
I think returning your open for inspections, yes, you can get a lot of business from that, and it's definitely a great prospecting method, but that's what I would include as part of selling the house. So 100 additional prospecting calls.
This is an and with it. The other thing that I heard you say there, these aren't just calls, they're connections.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's not how many times you dial the phone, it's how many connected conversations you had.
Yeah,
yep.
How many connected conversations? You can still leave some really good messages, so I don't want to diminish the importance of leaving a good client a message that you've had a relationship with, but you obviously cold calling a message is not going to have an effect.
Yeah, agreed. And I think you're right, if it's someone you know, you can give them an update around something,
yeah,
and you know they'll appreciate that, versus if it's someone out of the blue, it's just not going to work.
That's right.
Yeah. So you've done incredibly well from a farm area point of view, really dedicating a core area.
Yeah.
Can we talk through some of the strategies you utilise there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And you know, a big part of it is there could be some people who tune in and watching this and saying, you know what, I haven't really built momentum, or I don't have the data for that area.
Yeah.
And probably you didn't have that much when you started in that area as well.
No.
How'd you go about building that?
So first I really broke it down into the streets and how many houses were in each street, and kind of got to know the area. I did a lot of letterbox dropping, so I still think that is a really valuable method of meeting people. The strike rate is obviously not as high as your calls for open for inspections or your database calls, but you get a lot of new data, which I think is really, really important. And also cold calling, so calling off ownership data and cold calling around your listings, other agents' listings, things like that.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's just say, talking about cold calling, and I like to use the word personal introductions, but you know, it is actually a cold call on their part, and it is an interruption. So what do you have of value to have the conversation? I mean, are you ringing them to say, hello, do you want to sell your place? Probably not.
No.
What are you doing that's creating that connection and building the relationship? So
I reckon the two best cold calls to make are before a property goes on the market. So when you've listed it and it's coming up for sale and people in the area don't know about it.
So no signboard yet?
No signboard yet. So letting people know that it's coming on the market, because that's valuable information for them to know that the place 3 doors down the street is going to be for sale. That's the first thing. The second one is if there's a sale in the street, better if it's an undisclosed sale. I think that, you know, if people don't know the price, that's really valuable information to them as well. Yeah,
fantastic. So how about we just cover that first one? Yep. Let's say I'm an owner living in the street.
Sure.
You've got some ownership data. We don't know each other. I might know you based on profile now, but let's say, you know, let's step back in time. I didn't know who you were. So you're picking up the phone and ringing me. I'm not going to look at you because on the phone we don't actually have phone sort of connection. Hello, this is Michael.
Hi Michael, this is Zali calling from Marshall White. How are you today?
Zali, I'm good.
That's good. Have I caught you at a bad time, Michael?
No, it's okay. Is this going to take long?
No, just 30 seconds. I am just calling because we've actually listed a property in your street.
All right.
We've got number 19 coming on the market. And so I just thought I'd let you know, you'll probably see some photographers there, maybe a few extra cars in the street, and we'd love to invite you down to our first open for inspection Saturday week.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for that. I really appreciate it.
No problems. We'll be there on Saturday the 9th at 2 to 2:30. And if you have any friends or family who are looking to move to the area, please feel free to pass my details on. We'd love to introduce them to 19 Barina Road.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you, Michael. See you. Bye.
Great. So fantastic. What typically comes out of that?
Okay, so the next step is that you need to follow up with a business card or a handwritten note. So I prefer.
Important point here. It's not like a one-hit wonder.
No.
it's a process. It's the beginning of a process.
Correct. Yeah. So that's the first step. They obviously know who you are now. So sometimes people do already know who you are because you might have sold other properties in their street, so you get a warmer reaction. But the next step is then to send a business card, and I normally write a little handwritten note just to remind them of when the open is. Then hopefully they come down to the open and you get to meet them face to face. That's obviously the really key thing, because then
you're Zali.
Correct. That elevates the relationship to the next level. If that doesn't happen, then I give them a call after the property is sold to say, hi Michael, I spoke to you a few weeks ago, just want to let you know that we ended up selling number 19. We found you some really great neighbours, you're going to love them. We got X, whatever the price is, just to inform them. And normally from that call, I'll be able to gauge how often I'm able to follow them up and what their process is.
This is a bit of then from there, okay, what pathway, what channel do I put them into?
Yeah.
Great. And do you drop a brochure over to them at all?
If we have the brochures, they'll get that with the handwritten card. It just depends at what point we are in the sale. Yeah.
Well, I almost think the brochure would be a great second option.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they get the card and your business card, and then they get a brochure sort of like further down the track.
Once it's sold, because you want them coming to the open to get the brochure.
Yeah, okay, good point. Good point. Yeah, like the way of thinking.
Yeah.
So that was the first one. Mm-hmm. What's the second?
So once the property has sold, particularly if it's an undisclosed result, I think you can get a lot of positive reactions because people always want to know what houses sell for in their street.
Yes.
And I know real estate agents like to, have all of the prices published, but I think it's a really, an invaluable commodity is to have that information, because at the moment, if people go on Google or realestate.com, they can find everything. So if you're the holder of the information, you can get some really good contacts.
Yeah. And the other thing is that you're assuming that everyone's done that search and found out that price, whereas a lot of people won't have done that.
That's exactly right.
So you become their trusted advisor because you're giving them information, starting to build that relationship well and truly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then from there, you'd gauge, well, okay, I think this person needs this frequency or that frequency.
Yeah.
At what point in time do you say or ask them, have they had any thoughts of moving or that kind of thing?
Probably on the second phone call, depending on how the conversation goes. If somebody's really standoffish, I probably wouldn't even broach it the second time. Mm-hmm. I'll pop them on the database and do a follow-up call down the track. That might be 6 months, it might be 3 months, it might be 9 months, but no longer than 9 months. If I feel that they're really warm and open to the call, then I'll definitely ask them, given that we sold number 19 for X, have you had any thoughts about what yours might be worth, and have that conversation with them.
Yeah, great. That potentially has an impact on the value of your place.
Correct.
It might be worthwhile us giving you an updated opinion.
Or if you're feeling like the conversation's going exceptionally well, we had 4 bidders, we've got 3 under bidders, would you consider a move if the price was right?
Yeah.
But my whole aim in building my database is to make sure that everybody has a good experience on the phone through cold calling, not a bad experience, because I'm much more likely to get a phone call back from them in 6 months when they are ready to sell if I haven't been that annoying person that calls and says, are you wanting to sell? Yeah, exactly.
Well and truly. So that's great if you have a listing. What about if you don't have a listing in that street, but you go, man, that is such a cool street. I'd love to get into that.
Yeah.
What would you be recommending there?
Well, I think if you have a buyer who wants to buy in the street, you can always call and say you have a buyer. So that's one.
So do some reverse marketing.
Yeah.
We've got the buyer. Can we go through that one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So once again, ownership data.
Yep.
So you're now calling me.
Yep.
Hello. Michael here.
Hello, Michael. My name's Zali. I'm calling from Marshall White. How are you today?
I am good, thank you.
That's good. Have I caught you at an okay time?
Yeah, as long as it doesn't take too long.
Yeah, no problems. Michael, I've just been asked to get in contact with you from a specific person who's looking to buy a property in Barina Road. They're very keen to be close to Glen Iris Primary and they love the tree-lined nature of Barina Road. We've noticed that you have a beautiful California bungalow and I was just wondering if you'd had any thoughts of moving.
So they've asked you to contact me to see if there's any interest?
Yeah, we've got someone who wants to specifically be in that street, either in Barina Road, Cardinia or Lanier. And so I'm just contacting people to see if you've had any thoughts. I know it's a bit forward and I know it's a long shot, so I'm sorry I don't want to, intrude. But just thought on the off chance that you might be thinking of a move, I have someone who's really keen to get into that area.
Great. So if someone turns around and says, well, what sort of price or something like that, you know they've got a level of interest there.
Correct.
Or they turn around and say, no, definitely not.
Yeah.
You could then, roll out, do you have an interest in the property market? Love to keep you updated with what's happening.
Absolutely. And obviously you need to have a specific buyer in mind, but normally buyers will buy renovated or unrenovated. So if someone tries to pin me on a price, I'll normally say, listen, I've got to buy, the buyer's looking for something that could be renovated, which will be at the lower end, or something renovated, which will be at the upper end. And I can give a wider range when that occurs.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent, very good.
But I always drop in, I think, I know it's a long shot, and I probably tense my body up when I say that, but I know it's a long shot because I don't want them to think that, I'm just hassling everybody. So,
yes. Yeah, that's great. And really, what you've talked about here so far, it's about building relationships. Yeah. It's about honing the relationship, enhancing the relationship, and through small steps, really playing the long game in being the agent of choice and that trusted advisor in your market. Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. On the community front, anything you're doing specifically there? I've
just tried to build some really great relationships with all of the kind of community organisations in my area. So the schools, the primary schools, kindergartens, all of those types of organisations, to make sure that they know that we're part of the community as well. So that's been a big part of my business. And there's some key people that I think are influencers in every market. So I've really made sure that I look after those people. A lot of them haven't sold because they've been in their houses for a long time, but I know how much influence they have in the organisations.
Great.
And people go to them and say, we're thinking of selling, who would you recommend? So,
yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
So in relation to that, can you talk about, say, because kids?
Stepkids.
Yeah, stepkids, yeah. So in terms of the...
I never had that connection.
Yeah, so how do you get into a kindergarten or a school in that mode?
So I try and find out who the influencers are. So, ask around who's president of the PTA or runs the events or does the fundraising, and then just ask them to have a coffee and offer something to them. So, I've just met people along the way. For example, I met a lady at an open for inspection about 12 months ago who runs the Ashburton Community Centre, which is where, elderly people go to, have, high tea, and it's just a centre that they kind of all come together at. Yep. And I just met her at an open and got chatting, and she said she ran the events there, and so straight away she went on my database, and I've just kept in contact with her. And then about 2 months ago she called me and she said, listen, we're running a major event and we'd like a sponsor, are you guys interested? It only cost me $200 to be the major sponsor, but we've got our boards, our branding and our name in front of not only everybody at that event, but a key influencer in the marketplace.
Yeah, fantastic, great. So you really are looking for who are those key people, sitting down with a coffee, seeing how can I help you, we're part of the community, clearly you're doing great things in the community, is there a way that we could work together?
Absolutely.
And start to explore.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just a small thing as well, like a board, an advertising board for an event, or a couple of $100, that's all it takes.
Yeah, fantastic, great. So anything else on the prospecting side you'd like to cover off on? This has been brilliant, by the way.
Where do you stop, Michael? There's so much to talk about.
100 calls,
More than 100 calls, but minimum 100 calls, a minimum.
Okay, minimum 100 calls, and not including the buyer follow-ups.
Not including buyer follow-up.
So well done. Zali, thank you so much for that. I know that'll make a difference to a lot of people within Marshall White, and as part of the Marshall White way, for the community, for really building the farm area, the ownership data, making those proactive prospecting calls to build great relationships, absolutely key. Thank you.
No problem.